Well, welcome, Malcolm Galloway from Hats Off, Gentlemen. It's adequate. Thank you for taking the time with us at ProgressiveRockCentral.com. As you know, I really enjoyed your last album, Nostalgia for Infinity. In fact, you ended up in first place in my 2020 poll last year at Best Albums.
Oh, thank you.
Great to finally talk with you, meet you one-on-one. Again, thanks for this opportunity.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for all your support and for having me. Yeah, it's a real pleasure.
All right. Couple easy questions. First, the band name. What is the story behind that unique name? I love it, but go ahead.
So I would accept the name is a bit silly and it maybe doesn't reflect how the music sounds, but the image in my head at the time was the idea of these Edwardian gentlemen throwing their hats in the air, not about something being amazing, but about it being average. That was the kind of imagery. And it's also a playful take on a historic quote by from Schumann about Chopin. So it's tongue-in-cheek and self-deprecating and playful. I mean, I think in some ways, I hope we take the music reasonably seriously, but we don't take ourselves very seriously.
Yeah, and to me it sounded Pythonish, Monty Python.
I think quite a lot of people have said it's quite an English kind of band name. Yeah.
No, it's great. All right, now let's go with Nostalgia for Infinity. I have my own interpretation of what it means, but you're the writer. And go ahead.
Well, many of the songs on the album were inspired by novels by the Welsh former astrophysicist and now major science fiction novelist Alastair Reynolds. So Nostalgia for Infinity was the name of a spaceship which then fused with its captain in a nanovirus in his series of novels, the Revelation Space series. And he's been very supportive with the album. He's also a prog rock fan, so we've had some nice chats about the gigs he's been to, and it was very touching that when he went back to write the latest novel in the series, he said that he'd been listening to the album to get back into the mindset of those characters and situations. And he sent us some of his own drawings of the spaceship that we've included in the booklet note. So we're very grateful to him for his support and engagement with the album. So that's a chunk of the album is related to his novels. The overall theme is about the fragility of civilization, how although we might seem quite civilized on the surface, we're not that far away from a barbarism if we don't make a conscious effort to look out for each other. So there's that theme running in his books, and then we also had some other stories that tied into that theme. So there's one instrumental track that sort of follows the story of my grandfather's experiences in the Second World War in the naval biplanes, and he was involved in the sinking of the Bismarck, the Second World War element there in standing up against inhumanity, and some other kind of narrative themes that fit into that kind of story, hopefully without it then getting too preachy or but yeah, that's the general theme of the album. Each of our albums has had either been a concept album or had a loose theme, so that was the theme for this one.
All right, I definitely want to thank you for two wonderful things. One was the signed copy you graciously sent. I really appreciate that. And another thing is those Facebook shows that you held during the pandemic. They were really wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
they really show the music you like and can play. I mean, I was surprised by the blues. Definitely you have prog under your thumb, but the blues was just excellent.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I've got quite a range of music that I enjoy. Prog is one of the nice things about writing overall in the umbrella of prog is that we seem to be allowed to be quite varied in what we do without then being, well, the people who support what we've been doing seem happy to support us when we're exploring different angles, and we don't feel a pressure just to do 8 versions of the same song every album. It's nice feeling able to explore whatever kinds of sounds we want to at the time. Yeah, so quite a wide range of musical interests. I started off really more in classical music. So I used to write about classical music and used to do some consultancy on contemporary classical chamber music. And I also write classical minimalist music under my own name separately. So that's been a big influence on me. But also, as you were mentioning about blues, and clearly blues has had a huge impact on much of the prog that I love. So, and somebody like David Gilmour or Steve Rothery from Marillion, there's the bluesy vocal. It's not about lots and lots of notes, but about the emotion from the bends up to individual notes that I find very moving. Yeah, so blues is an influence. Yeah.
All right. The live online shows also did introduce us to the magnificent flute player you have, Catherine Thomas. She is just incredible. That flute on the title track of the album is just mesmerizing. I also was reading on Facebook that she is another classical music fan, and she has her own classical music project. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes. Yeah, so and she's a soloist and chamber musician, so she's done several CDs as a solo classical musician, mostly of French early 20th century chamber music, and also she's the flautist of her wind quintet, the Galliard Ensemble. So she does a lot of classical recitals of chamber music.
Nostalgia for Infinity, did it accomplish all you wanted with that release during the year? How well did it sell? I know I wanted it, and hopefully it did as well as expected.
For me, I feel it did a lot better than I was anticipating or hoping. We had a lot of very kind support from reviewers and radio stations and supporters, and I really do appreciate people who do make the effort to buy the albums or to listen on even on Spotify. I know it's not the same as buying the album, but within 20 minutes of anything that gets released, it's available for download on illegal sites for free. So anybody who makes the effort to listen to our music in a way that actually supports us making the next album is hugely appreciated. Yeah. So yeah, I mean it's done much better than I'd hoped. Obviously within the bounds of independent prog bands, I'm not suggesting those kind of numbers are getting your own private jet type numbers. It's more it's more our aim is we can then afford to press the next album without it losing us money. It's as long as it doesn't make a loss, that's quite a significant achievement as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, in the current climate, how difficult it is to sell actual albums. Yeah, if we can afford to keep doing it, then that's great.
And now you have logistics and Brexit making it even more complicated.
Certainly doesn't help.
Not fair. It's just not fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Prague the Forest Festival. You sponsored it, set it up from my understanding. And how did that go? It looked like from
That
everything
was
I've been reading.
great. I loved it. Obviously, it's been a weird couple of years for live music, and getting to play again in front of people is really joyful. Also, with Prog the Forest, so fortunate to have some other really amazing musicians volunteering to play with us. And it's in aid of the World Land Trust, which buys up bits of rainforest that might otherwise be chopped down and puts them into a charitable trust, working with local communities to have it saved in perpetuity. So we had, and I was, as a particular coup, John Etheridge from Soft Machine. He played at the event, which, we're a small event. I'm not claiming that this is a massive stadium. This is a small local event, and he very, very kindly came and played to support us. So, yeah, we raised enough with that for 15 acres to be saved. And since we've been doing Prog Forest, that's now takes our total up to 26 acres of threatened land that's now able to be protected. So I'm really pleased with how that went. And to me, it just felt like such a warm, supportive, joyful atmosphere at the event. I was delighted.
Excellent. I'm going to be talking with the Far Meadow tomorrow.
Oh, they're lovely. They did an amazing set. Really impressive.
Wonderful band and wonderful music, good people. And from the looks of it, they're going to have 4 or 5 people on here, so it's going to be fun. We've been wanting to talk to them as well. You do have real close relationships with a lot of bands. I got to get this sun out of my eyes. There we go. You want to talk a little bit about that? Go ahead.
One of the things that's really nice in our kind of little prog scene in the UK, I mean, obviously it's not a hugely commercial environment. It's not as if anybody's fighting over money, because there's no money involved in this kind of world, but it's really mutually supportive. It's people who are in it because they love music, and I can't say that I've really had any bad experiences with other bands. I mean, it's always, as far as I've experienced, been very mutually supportive. The bands, wherever possible, stay to listen to each other. We see each other regularly on the different festivals, and there is a real it feels like there's a significant resurgence of interest in, I don't know how to phrase it, but complex rock music and adjacent genres. It feels like there's a real upwelling of interesting musicians and bands, and an increasing audience. It's still a niche audience, but it's an audience that is enthusiastic and passionate. I was really still traveling up to 500-600 miles. There's a real sense of love for the music, and that's an absolute joy to be part of.
Definitely, absolutely, and it's good to see prog back. Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about that. I think I sent you a messenger question about the work you did with Steve. I know Steve Hackett. I know you guys didn't meet or anything, but
yeah, I would. So Gabe Treyer, who's the guitarist for Steve Hackett and Steve Rothery when they're in South America, he asked me to do some orchestral parts for a track on his first solo album. So he's somebody who's been playing in the touring bands of some of these great musicians for many years, and then he's been gradually building up to releasing an album of his own music, and he was able then to get some of these legendary people like Steve Hackett and Steve Rothery to perform on his album. And I was very honored that he asked me to contribute to one of the tracks. So I wrote some orchestral parts. It's synthesized, but yeah, so I was writing some of the, the string parts and some keyboards, like synth keyboard parts to go with it. And this was all remote work, and so sadly I didn't actually get to directly perform with any of those amazing people that he had, but it's still, to me, a huge honor to be on the same album as some of my musical heroes. It made me feel, it was a real sense of people like that working with him also wanted me to contribute something that
Have you met him ever? Real nice guy. I met them, believe it or not, I met them back, actually him and Steve Howe back at GTR. I went to a GTR concert, and they actually, it blew my mind because I thought there's no way they're going to take questions or anything. And I think it was Steve Howe that said, do you guys have any questions for us? And they said, oh my God, yeah. I don't remember what I asked now, but yeah, they're very easy to talk to and wonderful people. Not only, legends in terms of music, but just wonderful people in general. And that's.
I think Steve Hackett, I think, is both lovely and also an amazing musician, and he was so influential in the development of the, some of the techniques involved in guitar playing, virtuoso, and he was extremely supportive with us. So I've not met him in person, but he very kindly gave us a quote that we could use in our publicity from him about our music, and that's obviously for an obscure independent band, having somebody like that saying that they think you're good is a really helpful way of,
Yes.
opening doors, getting people. I mean, there are so many good musicians in the world, and there's so much music being produced every day that one of the hardest things is, why would anybody actually take the time to hear your music? Anything that you can do that gives a hook in for somebody to just give you those 5 seconds to decide whether to invest more time in listening to you is incredibly helpful. And so having a quote from Steve Hackett has been a huge help to us. We're really grateful to him for that.
And he definitely took his hat off to you. I mean, I remember that quote. It was very strong and very supportive. So
yeah, it was.
I remember that he said, I think you're one of his favorite bands in that year, or something like that. So yeah, it was very very good. Let's talk about the next Hats Off Gentlemen, It's Adequate album. It sounds like from talking with you, it's underway, or tell us.
Yeah, so the next album is called The Confidence Trick, and it's the general theme of this is in relation to cognitive errors and history. So I had a misspent youth of being a doctor and medical school teacher, and one of the things I used to teach about was misdiagnosis, how people make mistakes, the psychology of mistake making, and we see the same kind of problems in history where people repeatedly make the same kind of mistakes. One of these, exactly. So one of these that I used to teach a lot of is the dangers of overconfidence. I mean, there's the kind of boosting your confidence industry of telling you, yeah, you can achieve anything you want, you just have to believe it. And for an individual, being confident clearly has advantages. But as a society, we tend to assume that people who are confident are competent. And that's not always the case. There are some people who are extremely confident and are blind to their shortcomings, but they tend to get over promoted. And it's great for them individually and very damaging for the rest of us. So in my former professional life, I was doing some research and teaching about how being overconfident can lead to a wrong diagnosis, but obviously we see it in history in terms of wars and genocides, and the way that we tend to bow down to very confident leaders. So that's what the overall theme of the album is. As with the previous one, we covered it from a variety of different angles. It's not got just what, it's not got a narrative from beginning to end. It's just that there's a thematic link with them. So some of them are sort of science fiction stories relating to that theme. Some of them historical things. This one's got an sort of more classical piece in the middle that relates to my great grandmother's experiences. She was as a refugee, so she started off in Eastern Europe and had to escape from pogroms, where mobs would come to the village and just try and kill as many people as they could. She escaped from that, ended up in Paris, where her husband signed up in the French army, and almost immediately was then killed in the First World War. Then she worked in the as a costume maker in the ballet and opera and in early cinema. But then when the Nazis came, she had to go into hiding in a village, and there was a very kind village in the Pyrenees where they hid her away, and she would do the sewing for the village in the loft of a barn while they hid her and fed her. And she survived the war, but her daughter, who happened to be out of the country when the war started, never knew whether she was alive for all those years until afterwards. So there's a piece, an instrumental piece that follows that story, doing something roughly equivalent to what I was doing with my grandfather's story, which was on my dad's side. This one is from my mum's side. Yeah, so that's what the album's about. In terms of where we're up to with it, we've got one more vocal part to record. One's a bit tricky, lots of syllables for me to trip over. And we've got a flute part to record, and then just finishing off bits of mixing and then mastering. So we're about over 90% of the way there. And then also to finish off things like the album art and the booklet. And we try and make the booklet a fairly substantial thing with essays and stories rather than just a track list. So.
No, you're right. They really are wonderful. There's a lot to the story. Expound. So you're looking probably spring or summer?
Yeah. As you mentioned, there are some supply chain issues, obviously both with COVID and with Brexit. I know some other people have had difficulty with getting CDs pressed. There are delays. We used to get stuff pressed abroad, and now that's much more difficult, unfortunately. So I can't guarantee in terms of delays there, but we should be ready to press within hopefully, I hope it's not going to take more than a couple of months to get to that stage. Yeah, so it should be next year, and hopefully spring or early summer.
Good. No, that'll be good. Springtime. That time of year is everyone's looking for new stuff. So good timing. Yeah, in fact, that was going to be my next question was logistics. Um, but sounds like you're definitely working with them. And all right, we can skip over that one. You already have accomplished going out on tour and doing festivals. Do you plan to do more in 2022? I know it's going to be a huge year for everyone, it looks like. I mean,
Mm.
so many bands are coming out of retirement or whatever you want to call it. And is there room? That's what I'm wondering.
Well,
Is there going to be room for people to be able to get in and participate?
so we've got quite a few festivals booked up
Okay.
next, so I'm looking forward to those. Um, Hard Rock Hell Festival, that's one of the UK's major prog festival events. Looking forward to that. We're going to be on the same bill as Rick Wakeman, which would be quite exciting.
Oh, wow.
Um, and that's fun. It's really nice actually
Definitely.
playing in a big, theatre type space. Most of the events that we are involved with putting on ourselves are obviously much smaller scale events, which is nice with the intimacy, but it is also quite joyful to play in a big theatre as well. So yeah, we're really looking forward to the gigs we've got coming up. To me, just playing live is such a joy, and all the frustrating things in life, and I've got medical issues. I've got a medical condition. I get chronic pain. I'm
Sorry.
thanks, but what I mean is, music's one of those things where if you're feeling frustrated or angry or upset, you can actually express that in the gig, and it can come out in something positive, and hopefully that maybe connects with other people who are in similar kinds of situations, and you can turn something unpleasant into something positive that you can communicate. I mean, I'm not saying our songs are very positive and that they're quite bleak, but at least it's turning a negative experience into something constructive. So
Yeah.
for me, getting on a stage and
No, it's got to be
performing
fun. It's got to
is
be fun to finally.
so important for my mental and physical. It does a lot for me. I hope it's not just for my benefit, but certainly I get a lot out of it. Yeah. So
But
we're very
people
keen
do
to
too. I
perform
mean,
live as much as we can.
we as fans have been wanting to see you. Any chance? Any chance you'll make it to the States? I know that
Well, we would love
that's
to.
an even more difficult feat these days with COVID and everything.
We'd really like to on the logistics, and if someone can actually fly us out there. So we did have a kind invitation a little while ago, but we just couldn't make it work in terms of the travel. But yeah, I mean, if a festival wanted to have us and can arrange to get us there, we'd be delighted. Yeah, I mean, looking at our Spotify, and I appreciate lots of people don't. I was looking at the listens that we're getting are coming from America.
Oh,
If there's a way of us getting there and playing, would be delighted. I also appreciate from our perspective, if I say, oh, going to America to play, obviously a huge place, and it's like if somebody from America saying they're coming to Europe, and obviously there's just because somebody's in one part of Europe doesn't mean they can get to a gig in any part of Europe. But yeah, we'd love to. Yeah.
excellent. Yeah, I hope you do. I really hope so. Are there some side projects you're planning for next year?
Oh yeah, so I've got my next classical minimalist album. I think that's 5 or 6 of those I've done so far. So I do roughly one rock album, one classical album in parallel. So that's pretty much ready to go, and I'll put it out about the same time as the Hats Off one. That's a very different kind of music. That's much more gentle and instrumental.
All right.
I quite like working on a variety of different kinds of music at the same time. So sometimes the actual editing process is quite frustrating and potentially annoying. You might be going over and over the same phrase, screeching out some phrase and hearing it just going around hundreds of times while I'm making tiny adjustments to graphic equalizers or different settings. And it's nice then to have a break from that and go and do something gentle for a bit, and then go back to the other thing, rather than getting too fed up with one sound at a time. It also gives your ears a bit of a break, not to hear the same kind of thing all the time.
Well, let me ask you this. Is there anything else that I haven't mentioned that you would like to talk about or discuss? If it's not one thing, it's another. Yeah. Well, did you want to mention anything? Because now that it looks like the internet is back working again, it really sort of cut you off. Go ahead.
No, and we're delighted with the bunch of festivals that we're going to be playing, starting I think next spring in the UK. It's really nice that the bookings for festivals over the last couple, our festival bookings started to really take off, and then COVID came along, and so obviously there was this interruption, and I was a bit concerned that had we missed the that opportunity and it was all going to fade away. But no, I'm very pleased that we've got quite a lot of festival bookings this year, and it's a real pleasure to play at these events. Really looking forward to those, and looking forward to having the new album out and playing tunes from it.
Excellent. Well, hey, I want to definitely thank you, Malcolm, for taking the time to participate in this interview with us on ProgressiveCentral.com. We do wish you and the band all the best in the future, and definitely have a wonderful holiday season ahead. And again, thank you for all the time you spent.
Well, thank you very much for all your support. Really appreciate it. Thanks.
All right, I'm going to stop the recording here.